Let me tell you something strange about highly intelligent people. We live in a world that treats intelligence like a prize, something to be displayed, measured, admired, yet some of the most intelligent minds move through life quietly burdened, not empowered by their intelligence but weighed down by it. And here is the question that always lingers beneath the surface: why does something meant to elevate us so often become a source of isolation? At first glance, we assume intelligence is protection, a shield against confusion, a shortcut to clarity. But that's not the full picture. Beneath the surface, there's an entire psychology at play. One that has less to do with brilliance and more to do with awareness. Because seeing more doesn't always mean living more easily. See, for some people, high intelligence isn't confidence, it's vigilance. It's the mind constantly scanning, predicting, analyzing outcomes before they happen. It's not that they overthink because they're anxious. They're anxious because they see too many possibilities at once. In daily life, this shows up quietly. You notice patterns others ignore. You hear what isn't said. You sense when something is slightly off, even when everyone else is comfortable. Conversations feel layered, situations feel loaded. And while others move forward easily, you pause not because you're unsure, but because you're aware. People often admire intelligence from the outside. They see competence, insight, depth, but from the inside, intelligence can feel like living without filters. Every decision branches into consequences. Every interaction carries subtext. Every choice feels irreversible once you've imagined all the outcomes. Psychologists have found something fascinating about people with high cognitive ability. They don't just process information faster, they process it deeper. They simulate reality internally before engaging with it externally, which means they don't simply live experiences, they anticipate them. And anticipation, when constant, becomes a form of emotional labor. It's not about being pessimistic, it's about being unable to unsee what you see. This is where the first misunderstanding appears. People assume intelligent individuals are confident, decisive, emotionally detached, but often, the opposite is true. The more you understand systems, people, and consequences, the harder it becomes to act without hesitation, because certainty collapses under too much awareness. And here's the reframe: what looks like indecision is often responsibility. What sounds like doubt is often integrity. And what feels like hesitation is sometimes the mind refusing to oversimplify a complex world. But this awareness doesn't come without cost. For many, the burden of intelligence begins after experience, after disappointment, after realizing that insight doesn't guarantee safety, that knowing more doesn't always protect you from pain, it sometimes exposes you to it sooner. There's usually a moment, quiet, forgettable, when you realize that being right doesn't feel as good as you thought it would. That understanding people doesn't mean they'll understand you. And that intelligence, when unshared, can feel like carrying a language no one else speaks. Here's what's often misunderstood. Intelligent people don't struggle because they lack connection. They struggle because they crave precision. They want to be seen accurately. And vague connection feels worse than solitude when your inner world is detailed and exacting. There's a psychological mechanism beneath this: cognitive empathy paired with introspection. When you understand others deeply, but feel rarely understood in return, your nervous system learns restraint. You speak less, you reveal selectively. You protect clarity by limiting exposure. And culture doesn't make this easier. Because let's be honest, most environments reward speed, certainty, and confidence, not nuance, not doubt, not depth. We praise quick answers over thoughtful questions, decisiveness over discernment. And for someone whose mind naturally sees layers, this pressure to compress thought becomes exhausting. So you adapt, you simplify your speech, you hide complexity, or you withdraw altogether. And when you do, people label it arrogant, detached, cold, as if intelligence were synonymous with superiority. But often, it's the opposite. You've simply learned that not everything you see needs to be said, and not everyone wants to hear it. So here's a question worth sitting with. When was the last time you felt intellectually at ease around others? Not admired, not deferred to, but met. And if that feels rare, what does that tell you? Because this is where the paradox deepens. Intelligence is meant to illuminate. Yet many intelligent people feel most alive in quiet obscurity. Not because they reject visibility, but because visibility demands performance. And performance dilutes truth. But not all withdrawal is wisdom. Some intelligent people retreat because thinking has replaced living, because analysis has become armor, because understanding pain feels safer than feeling it, and sometimes intelligence becomes the justification for distance rather than a bridge toward connection. This is where complexity matters. The same behavior withdrawal can come from clarity or fear, from discernment or avoidance, and often it's both. There's an existential layer beneath all this. High intelligence raises uncomfortable questions early, about meaning, about mortality, about the fragility of systems others trust without question. And when you see how provisional everything is, enthusiasm becomes harder to sustain. In a world that says be certain, living with ambiguity becomes isolating. In a culture that rewards confidence, doubt feels like failure. Yet doubt is often the byproduct of understanding too much to be simplistic. Here's the paradox. Intelligence expands your inner world, while shrinking the number of places it feels safe to express it. The deeper you go, the fewer people can follow. And the fewer who follow, the lonelier the journey becomes. Over time, something shifts. Your internal life grows richer. Thoughts stretch. Ideas interconnect. You find solace in complexity. And the longer you live this way, the more superficial interaction feels unbearable. Not because others are shallow, but because your mind refuses to stay on the surface. Studies show that highly intelligent individuals often experience heightened emotional regulation when alone. Reduced stimulation calms the nervous system. Cognitive load decreases. The mind finally rests when it no longer has to translate itself constantly. This isn't antisocial, it's adaptive. But it's also misunderstood. Silence is mistaken for disengagement, caution for arrogance, depth for distance. When in reality, intelligence often brings a reverence for precision, a reluctance to speak unless something true can be said. Maybe that's what real intelligence looks like. Not dominance, not display, but restraint. Not the need to be heard, but the ability to remain silent without disappearing internally. There's something almost sacred about that. About allowing thoughts to exist without external validation. About protecting ideas before they're ready to be reduced. Because not everything meaningful survives exposure. Not every insight wants applause. Some thoughts need darkness to stay alive. So the next time you meet someone who speaks carefully, who hesitates before answering, who prefers depth over speed, don't assume they lack confidence. Maybe they've simply learned the weight of words. And if this resonates with you, if intelligence has ever felt like both a gift and a burden, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to perform brilliance more loudly. You can let intelligence be quiet. You can let understanding exist without proof. Because in the end, intelligence isn't about knowing more than others. It's about carrying more than most can see. And maybe the hidden cost of high intelligence isn't loneliness itself, but learning how to live with clarity in a world that prefers comfort. And perhaps the rarest intelligence of all is knowing when not to speak.